Hello and welcome to Spring Creek Acres Weekly Update, again with the drone. First off, I'm going to draw a square around my starts. It's peppers and tomatoes and some herbs. They are going in the ground tomorrow. The second box here is a war I had with those pear suckers that I've talked about in other videos. That's about 10 of them that I had to rip out by the root. They are definitely roots that got nicked and decided to grow. The chicks were over here in the last update, and now the tractor's sitting here with a bush hog. I just wanted to point out that this shade screen, which I've mentioned before, is awesome. I think I might plant sunflowers here because my daughter said I needed to make a field of sunflowers. This drone following you thing is not as cool as one might think. But we got it back on track again, but every time that I cut this feed, it's the drone that decided, nah, I don't want to follow you anymore. So over here is the bed that I did in the day in the life, and it's the area of it's about 35 by 35. By next week, we should have the beginning of a fence around it. I need to get it enclosed so I can get that corn planted. Oh, and the watermelon and the zucchini and the pumpkins. Anyway, this is the meat bird tractor. You can see that there's a hen up there in the front. She's rather large. I actually processed 7 of these. If you're reading my wife's blog, that went, well, it was a learning experience. The flock still hates the drone, and they're hiding in there. Now I'm going to take you up to where we did our processing. All the parts still aren't there. I've put them away, but you can see the ice chest that we chilled the chickens with and the raised table that I used for cutting them up. The pot past the table is actually used for loosening the feathers on the bird. You put them in a pot for about a minute at 150 degrees and oscillate them a little bit, and it comes right off. I had a chicken plucker right here. I bought it off of eBay. Works fantastic. Spins the chicken around, comes out without a feather. Now, this is where they actually died. It was not on that stump. To move the chickens from the tractor, I actually built this brooder. I'm about to start my next 25 birds, and they're going to go in here and live in the shop. But it was a nice staging area for the 7 unlucky big boys. Now watch here, the box is going to show my cell phone case fall. That was really fun to find later. Anyway, I cleaned up all of the branches from under the trees that I've parked so far, and I pulled about 50 pounds of them up here by hand before remembering that I owned a tractor. And then I started bundling them up with straps and dragging them up here. And I staged them here because I decided that the shredder doesn't need to go in and out of the shop all the time, and I'm going to leave it right here. Now, if you remember that pile from inside of the garden before of branches, that's all that they turned into, that little pile of chips. Big piles of wood turn into little piles of chips. Here we are back in the garden. Spring wheat is doing awesome. The weed eater sitting there in the background, giving away why all my weeds are now short. I took my electric cultivator through here and cleaned up some more beds where the stumps were. You can see over here, my wife was looking around in the weeds and said, "Hun, there's asparagus." And there's one spear there. You can almost see it. And the funny thing is that pile of weeds in the middle of the shot at the top there is actually a huge thing of asparagus. My wife planted cilantro here and 10 strawberries. And we're going to cruise off and look at the front yard, quote unquote, and see that I have spent many, many hours with that bush hog that was in the video earlier, mowing. The yard looks much better. I still haven't figured out how to get a filter on my drone, so it still looks a little washed out there, but I'll work on it. And the reason I flew the drone out here is while I was mowing, you can kind of see my path there. I found a little meadow on the property. We have not spent a lot of time exploring our property. We walked around the outside and went, yeah, we'll take it. You can see there's like a gully here on the left-hand side or going to the left corner. It is actually about 15-foot drop into where the creek is. Well, in the winter, there's a creek there. In the spring, there's a creek there. Here is the meadow. Originally, I called it Malcolm's Meadow, and Kristen came down and said, well, we need to find Gwen's Grotto. That's the name of our grandkids. And I said, well, why don't we name it the Grandkid Grotto? Anyway, we'll see. See if I can find another meadow. Here I'm just trying to fly my drone through trees. To get back, I appreciate you watching and participating in my brave adventure, and I will see you next week.